Welcome one and all. It's time for yet another lockdown hobby time, day 22. And tonight I have got some rather large, hefty monstrosities to show you. And of course we've also still got this guy on the go. Let's not forget about him. Probably be working on him a bit because I've got to wait for a few things to dry. First of all, we've got the Hellfane, which has now been nicely, let's get the light on here, nicely goldenized up in the upper regions, and of course I'm going to have to go and fix all the black that's now got gold on it, which isn't going to be too difficult, but all the top is nicely gold. Whether it all remains gold remains to be seen, because some of it is likely going to be silver, maybe even some bronze or copper thrown in there as well, just for a little added spice and excitement. We've got Graham and Steve in the chat already. Hello there. What else have we got on the table tonight? Well, we've got the Hellfane crew as well. All three of these bad boys. So we can work on those. And you'll be able to see a bit of my process with Abyssal Dwarf Infantry there. We've also got the model that is never going to fit into the camera shot in one piece. We've got the Shadow Hulk. You can see him from kind of the belly button down at the moment, and let's get him sideways so you can actually see most of him in one go. Is that even going to be possible? Close enough. So there he is. He's now all purpled up almost to the eyeballs, but he doesn't really have any, at least in the conventional location. All his eyeballs are in strange and wonderful places, such as his knee and on his hand with this big dragon head. On the back of his neck, he's got a bit of a face going on there as well. So that's going to be fun to work on. I airbrushed him in purple because it was going to take a long time to paint the whole thing. And I now need to decide what to do next with the purple. I'm probably going to do some kind of wash on it. Got something stuck to the dragon's face here. Let's just get rid of that. So I'm probably going to put a wash over all the parts that are going to remain purple. That would be the logical first step, and then we can work from there. But I think it's looking very tasty, especially now that it's all tied together in one colour like that. It suddenly looks like one model rather than just a mishmash of pieces, which it was just a matter of days ago. Very, very exciting times, I think you'll agree. So, I've literally only just got back from the airbrush station, where I airbrushed that monstrosity in purple, and then the Hellfane and the crew in gold. So we're going to leave them for a few minutes just to make sure they're 100% top-notch, ready to roll. And I'm going to be diving onto this guy first, doing a little bit of a coat on him, and then we'll go and move on to some of the really big stuff. So let's open up the wet palette, shall we? Look at that, some colours are still wet from several days ago in there, and I haven't even applied any additional moisture. Still nice and soggy. Okay, let's get a brush. Now, to match his buddy here, I believe, let's see, I think did we start with this one? I think we did some of this colour on him and then dry brushed in pink on top of that, and saved this fancy pants new colour that doesn't even have, oh no, this one does, which is the one that doesn't have a label, that one. We saved this one for these kind of veiny wraps around his legs. Graham has finished painting his wing, it's now making a base for it. Excellent. I need to think about the bases for these guys as well. So as far as this guy is concerned, even though there isn't that much left to do on him, I'm considering maybe doing a bit of a heavier white dry brush on his hair, so we get maybe more of a gradient going on, because it just doesn't feel like there's enough going on in the hair department. For his hair, we've done the same colour, except I'm going to have to paint his little headband there as well. He's got a hairband, should I say, and he's also got the tiny little beard at the front. So it's going to be subtle differences with him, but have we got any of this colour already out? It looks like there's a little bit there, but not enough. Possibly. Not even sure if that is the same colour there. I'll make a fresh blob anyway. There we go. So let's have, which brush do we want? Let's have this one. What's everyone else working on apart from Graham, who's already revealed that he's working on a Wingit base? I'm going to paint the raised areas in this colour on this beastie. Most of them anyway. I'm not going for a perfect all over colour because he's supposed to be a bit of a hideous monstrosity. So if there are any parts that are lighter, it's not going to be a problem. Everyone loves a bit of a monstrosity now and then, don't they? I've had a fiddle with the stream output, and let me know if it affects the quality at all, because I've set it to minimise the delay in the broadcast. I think before it was coming in at something like 2 minutes, the delay. And hopefully I've got it down to about 10 seconds now. So just let me know if there's any drop off in quality. And obviously I can address that. I expect it to be fine though. I'm not too bothered about painting over the little blobs sticking out of him here because they're all going to be caught with my dry brushing later. Steve's painting Orc Skulk Outriders plus Red Squirrel Clansmen for Burrows and Badgers. Who would have thought a Squirrel Clansman would be for Burrows and Badgers? That's just crazy talk. So have I got anything exciting to report today? I'm waiting on a couple of paints to arrive from eBay, but nothing that I don't already have. It's just to replace paints that have almost run out. So nothing to worry about there. And I'm also pondering when to place other orders, because at the moment I have got plenty to be working on. I don't need to be buying more stuff right now, but it's so tempting. There are more Night Stalkers out there that could be ordered. I've been eyeing up the Night Stalker Mega Army. Of course, there is no need right now because I've got so many units for that army already to work on. I'll probably wait till I've got at least some of them finished. Once this guy has got this colour on him, before we do any dry brushing, I'm going to move on to... We could go straight for the Shadow Hulk or the Hellfane. I did spray or airbrush the Shadow Hulk first, so I might apply a wash to him first and then move on to the Hellfane. The next step on the Hellfane isn't that exciting. It's going to be fixing all the black where the gold airbrush corrupted it. Which isn't going to be a ridiculously long task. So you can see with this colour, hopefully, I might set up another light here in a second. In fact, yeah, I'll do that now. Hopefully you can see that the colour isn't going all over. I'm not covering every little detail. I'm going to lower my chair as well so that I can get a better view in there. And let's line up my phone here to cast some additional light on the area. There you go. Hopefully you can see that there's still some variation in the colour. I've started lowering my seat when I'm painting because I have to hunch over less, which is going to lead to presumably less neck or back issues in the future, which would be handy, wouldn't it? Oh, and the model just decided to jump because he's not very firmly attached to his base, and there's purple on his hair now. That'll teach me. Will it though? We'll find out in the future if I do it again. So let's see if I can fix that a bit. Dive in there with a bit of water, try and fix it before it dries. Or minimise the damage at least. That'll do. Even though I'm painting a lot over the contrast paint here, I still like that as kind of a base for these models. If I wanted a nice even colour for everything, then I would not be using contrast paints underneath like this. But the fact that it's supposed to be a weird, nightmarish monster means that I can get away with a lot of variance in the skin tone, which is what I'm going for here. What's everyone else up to? Anything exciting? I know there's more people watching right now than have currently left a comment. Unless that's just the gang of phantom dislikers that are popping up on my videos lately. Since the return of the Andy and Rum show, it has to be said, so it could be Rum's fault, or it could just be that people are terrified that this channel would revert back to Age of Sigmar content, and that's not what they want to see. But I don't think you really need to worry about that. I haven't even played a game of Age of Sigmar in many, many months. I'm in the process of arranging some Kings of War games via the internet, using my armies on my table, so whoever I'm playing against would just direct me as to the use of one of the armies, and then they can roll their own dice, of course. And anything that I'd get them to do on camera probably would be the nerve tests, so that I can take a picture of the result, if it's interesting. I'm not going to go for a huge points level to start with for those games because that would be crazy. And I'm not going to stream them live because it's going to be too fiddly and it might take a long time lining up the units exactly where my opponent wants them over the internet. So it's not going to make the best live viewing, but I am going to take pictures and present them as battle reports. So that's something for everyone out there to look forward to if you've been suffering from Kings of War battle report withdrawal symptoms, which I know many of you have. The struggle is real. I'm in the process of arranging the first game in that style for next week, or this week, depending how you look at it. Sometime in the next few days. Steve's looking forward to the battle reports. Good. I'm sure everyone is. Okay. That's him done for the moment. Then we're going to do some more colours on him in a while. But before that, I think we can put a purple, it's probably Druchii Violet purple shade, I think, onto this bad boy. All the skin and all the tentacles, everything that isn't a weapon or piece of material stuck to him. And all these colours, I may not end up using all of these purple for all of these parts. Like the tentacles, I might do a different colour ultimately. So is it worth pondering that now before I put the Druchii Violet on there? Because I could actually do a base coat of some other colour on the tentacles, for instance. Or I could just do the Druchii Violet on everything and then decide if I want to do the tentacles different later on. I think I'll go for that option because I might just decide to dry brush them with something or highlight them with something that I don't use on the rest of the flesh, which would make them look sufficiently different anyway. So let's go for it. Or do I want to just do them pink, the tentacles? What do we think, audience? Could I just do all the tentacles pink? So all the tentacles coming out of his head, all the little tentacles sticking out of him, like this one here. And there's other ones coming out of his side, like there. And there's one sticking out of his chest there. One out the back of his leg, right here. Do I paint all the tentacles in pink? And then around the base of the tentacle, I can kind of apply more Druchii Violet, more coats of it the closer I get to the base of the tentacle, so that it blends in with the purple of the flesh. What do we think? Decisions, decisions. I've got the pink right here ready to roll with the audience's say-so. And if I am going to do that, do I do the front of the big tentacles, or do I do all the way around even to the back, or do I just do it on the side with the suction cups? Apparently Steve had a game of Dreadball earlier and didn't go well for him. Oh dear. Well, that's sometimes how it goes, isn't it, with Dreadball? landslide. What do we think then? Pink on the suction cup side, pink all over, or no pink at all? I'm leaning towards pink just on the soft suction cup side of the tentacles, and then the other side can be a different shade of purple or pink. Maybe this on the back. That's what I'm leaning towards right now. So in fact, I'm just going to unload some pink onto the palette right now and start working on the front of the tentacles, and then if anyone tells me that both sides should be pink, I'll consider it again. Steve seems to agree with me. Don't forget to like the video, everyone, by the way, to counteract the 4 or 5 rebels that are in there trying to bring down the cause. I'm not exactly sure how they would do that by disliking a video, but you get the idea. Okay, suction cup side only. It's quite difficult to grip such a gigantic model. Doesn't matter hugely if I stray a bit of this paint onto the other side of the tentacle right now, because I'm going to paint the other side in a different colour anyway. But I'd rather not infect the skin too much on the body. I don't really have an exact copy of the airbrush paint that I used, so I could just use that in a very thin airbrush paint coat to repair it. Now on this particular tentacle, the suction cup side kind of swirls round to the other side by the time it gets to the other end. And it loops under the arm as well. Right, see, when I was building this thing, I was just sticking bits on it. I didn't really think about the painting access at the time, because I was just having fun building like a lunatic. Hopefully you can see a lot of what I'm doing here. Maybe if I tilt the camera up a bit. There you go, you can see that I use hot chocolate as my water pot. And you can actually see a bit more at the moment. Quite difficult working so far away from the piece that I'm actually working on. My face is quite far away from it because it's such a hefty model, and obviously I have to physically sit at my desk while doing this. I can't detach my head and put it in a different spot so I can see what I'm doing, and the arm range and everything, it's just complicated by the model being so vast and tall. If I were to hold the model further up, that might help, but I'd rather try and hold it from the base when possible. It's going to be an exciting day when this creature's finished. Wouldn't bet on it being any time particularly soon. There's going to be a lot to do on this bad boy. And I'll probably end up finishing the Hellfane first. This guy just got lucky that I airbrushed him first, so I was more confident in diving in and painting this. Chris says, is that a Kings of War giant? Yes, it is a Kings of War giant, heavily converted. Kings of War giant with tentacles coming out of his head, a dragon hand, faces all over him, heavily tentacled up and messed up to the eyeballs to make it into a Night Stalker's Shadow Hulk. And I'm looking for any suction side tentacles to paint in pink right now. Chris says, oh nice, that's cool. Can't wait for GW's new giants to come out. Yeah, they are very nice looking. And if I can justify buying one, I'm sure I will. But obviously that's a whole other question. Whether I can actually justify buying one, depending what I'm working on at the time, and what I can actually use it for. They are very nice though. And I would like to have one at some point. I'm a fan of painting these just ridiculous big models nowadays. I used to not like it so much. I used to prefer just painting the standard boring infantry just because it was easy. But once you've painted a few big things and start to build your confidence in it, fun times ahead. It's kind of awkward reaching this tentacly bit here, so I'm going to have to put them upside down. Trying not to get too much paint on the arm by mistake here. Just so damn big and complicated. Dwarven Darkness is here. And yes, there will be some Hellfane work done tonight. I know you've got a thing for the Hellfane. Probably be on that after I do this pink colour, which you can just about see me applying at the moment because this model's so tall. This is one hell of a beast. It'll take me a long time to finish this. Not this particular stage, but overall it's going to take a long time because of all the extra detail I've slapped in there. Lord Love says, I can't wait for lockdown to finish. I had my first game of Kings of War planned before it all, still haven't had a chance to play. Well, that is most unfortunate that lockdown has delayed your gaming debut into Kings of War. On the plus side, it's given everyone a chance to get their armies finished, because 3rd edition was still pretty new, and a lot of new players, some of which were playing with partly or totally unpainted armies. So it's a good opportunity to fully prepare themselves. One of the few pluses about this situation. Okay, just put it a bit more under here. This is very difficult to manoeuvre while trying to hold it from the base. I may just give up and start holding it by halfway up the model at some point. Okay, the tentacles that don't have a suction side, should I be doing those in pink or should I be doing them the colour of the other side of the tentacles? There are some sticking out like at the side of his body here that are just plain old boring tentacles with no suction side. Pink or no pink? That is the question for those body parts. We've got one here, got one at the back of his leg, we've got on his chest. What's the verdict? And while you're deciding, while I've still got the pink out, I'm going to put it into one side and we're going to do the pink dry brush on this guy quickly while we've got the pink. Steve votes for no pink, and he's saying we should save pink only for the suction cup zone. Okay, now time for a nice heavy pink dry brush on this guy. Nearly popped off his little base there. Any other votes for whether those tentacles should be pink or not? At the moment, I'm leaning towards no, and Steve would seem to agree. If anyone can make a compelling argument for the other direction, then I'm still open to change. Chris says, it's great time to make hobby progress. I'm working on some random enemies from Warhammer Quest Silver Tower, and my friend is finishing his first AOS army in the meantime, which is Zinch. Very nice indeed. Anything that's just been sitting on the painting table for a long time, this is a great time to get to it for a lot of people. Not everyone, of course. Some people are essential workers, and others who are working from home don't necessarily have an increase in hobby time. But many people do have a bit of spare time on their hands. So for those people, might as well get some hobbying done. Yeah, I'm sure everyone's looking forward to getting their games back in as soon as this is all over. Okay, he's looking quite pink now. So there's how they look comparative to each other at the moment. This guy still needs a white dry brush on him, just to bring out those extra little details. Maybe just a bit more on the face there. Okay. So we finished with the pink for now. Chris seems to think that pink would be good in small quantities, like for the suction cup parts. Yeah, that's the way I'm leaning as well right now. So I'm going to do some on the Hellfane in a moment. And then, depending how long that takes to re-black up the Hellfane, then I might get time to get back to the Shadow Hulk tonight and do a bit more on him. We shall see. Just washing off the dry brush here. We don't want any pink lingering in there. Okay. Boom, there he is. So, the process for this, I'm going to paint all the black in again. Then I'm going to do the skin on the Hellfane crew. And then after that, I'm going to do Reekland Flesh Shade to all the gold areas, including their gold armor and their skin at the same time, because I'm putting the same shade on it, so I might as well do it all together. But first, of course, we've got to fix the black down here where the gold has strayed on there. And once we've done that, the actual rock lava parts, after the black, I'm going to paint white lines wherever I want there to be lava. And then I'm going to put a yellow shade on top of that, which will make it nice and yellow. And then, yes, another black step, going to go round the white lines with black, where the white lines may have strayed a little bit too far. And then there's going to be lots of dry brushing onto the black. And then there's going to be shades onto the black. So quite a lot of steps ahead, but this is how I paint all my rock creatures. So all the obsidian golems and the hexcaster as well, that little lava beetle himself, little lovable fella. So which brush do we want for this task? We might start with a decent sized brush and then work to a smaller one when we're around the gold. So let's start with this one. This is quite a beefy one. And it doesn't matter about using the primer anymore for the black, because obviously this isn't straight onto the resin. So where's the actual black hiding? There it is. I bet you saw that before me because it was hiding behind the hell vein. So giving it a good shake. Don't forget to like the video, by the way, if you like it, obviously. Don't like it if you despise this video and think it's the worst thing you've ever seen, in which case feel free to dislike it. Use a nice big splodge of black into the wet palette, and let's start fixing up all the parts that were sprayed with gold inadvertently, which is almost all of it, but not quite. The armour plates on the legs, actually, I haven't sprayed very well in gold, so I might have to actually paint those by hand. So, when I've played a couple of my Kings of War games over webcam on my table, of course, using my armies, I'm going to arrange the first couple, and if they go well, then I might open it up and ask people out there around the world if they want to play in the same manner. While I can't have in-person games, obviously the people I'm playing against don't have to be anywhere near me. That's something I might open up to the wider community, if people are interested in playing that way, at least. Let's see how the first couple of games go. I'm going to need a lot more black, I think. MCO says hi from New Zealand. Hello there. We're making slow progress here. Slowly working our way around this monstrosity. Roughly how many hours total do you think it will take to have painted your Abyssal Dwarf army? That is very difficult to calculate. Usually I just paint for an hour or so and then stop and then do more later. So it varies wildly. Because once I get towards the end of the unit, I usually paint the longer stretches then to just try and get it finished, because I've got the motivation then, because it's so close to the finish line. But it would be difficult to hazard much of a guess. So I'm not sure any kind of guess I could make would be in any way accurate. But it does take me longer than some people to paint. Partly because I only paint in short bursts, usually. But also there are some people that just are like a ninja, like a ninja wizard with a paintbrush. They get it in their hand and it's just like, and then the model's finished. They brush like the wind. Hopefully I can start doing the more interesting parts of the Helfane either tomorrow or the day after, depending how fast this bit goes. Obviously this isn't the most entertaining part. Chris still hasn't tried out Kings of War yet, but would like to eventually. Well, it's definitely worth a try. A case can be made that every game system is worth a go. It's just whichever ones you have access to in your area. That's the main drawback for some systems in certain locations. I know there are a lot of games I would be playing more often if I had very easily accessible opponents for them. Okay, we're going to need even more black. And we're going to be approaching the face of the beast soon. I could have covered off these areas, but I'm always hesitant to do that because gold is much more difficult to paint in than black. So if I'd accidentally obscured any of the parts that were supposed to be gold, it would be much more annoying to go back and fix those than it is to fix the black parts. Painting its nose right now. It's a very hefty creature. Yeah, if a community doesn't exist in your area, you got to get out there and make it happen. Put the word out on the street. When I first got back into wargaming, I wasn't particularly interested in going down to any clubs where I didn't know anybody, going to events and tournaments when I didn't know anybody. So the first thing I did when I was looking for opponents, I went on the various Facebook groups for the games that I was interested in playing and just posted, hey, looking for games. And I went on which forum would it have been? Maybe the Warhammer forum. Is that still a thing? But back in the day, just posting in these places, asking if anyone wanted a game in the local area. And that's how I got my first few opponents lined up for different systems. And they even have apps for that now. There's the Game 4 app, which I arranged one game with. That was an Age of Sigmar game. Just trying to cover every little bit that had been turned gold by the airbrushing process here. All the bits that weren't supposed to be anyway. Yeah, when I start doing the online games, I think with Kings of War, it's probably better for it than some of the other systems I've tried it with in the past. I've played Age of Sigmar games over the internet before, and it's a lot more fiddly, obviously, because each individual model has to be moved, and there tend to be quite a lot of them. So I think that or 40k would be kind of annoying to play over the internet unless you were using like Imperial Knights or something like that. I played a lot of Relics over the internet, and that was easy because it's a very low model count game. So that was a lot of fun. But I think Kings of War will be quite a decent one. Because the units are big, you don't have a lot of individual things running around, typically. And as long as someone doesn't take a list that has 40 really cheap, tiny units in it. Chris is holding off on Kings of War until I have someone who's already interested in trying it with me. And that is a fair approach. Just looking to see which bits I've missed here. Okay, we're going to need some more black. Washing the brush regularly though to make sure it doesn't get any dry paint, messing it up even more than it already is. Yep, I know Steve has been playing some 6mm Kings of War online, which is presumably even easier because they're even smaller. So you can get a better view of the entire battlefield, presumably. Steve's had about 6 games of Kings of War over the internet so far, and it's worked well apparently. Well, that's good to hear. Of course, it's not ideal for everyone, because not everyone has a lot of different armies to choose from at their own house. But some of us have been playing Kings of War quite a while and have amassed a fair few armies. Because this model's so wrinkly, it's difficult to spot the bits that you've missed unless you get it to the perfect angle to see them. That's why this process is taking a little while. It's easy enough, it's just taking time. Sometimes wonder after the lockdown's over, will I keep up the motivation to keep painting every single day? Because that is the best way to get things done, even if you're not doing a lot each day. Just for the fact that you know you have to pick that brush up every day, it means that you do get it done eventually. And then even if you're only there for 15 minutes painting, when you look at the model the next day, you'll see that there's more done on it than there was the day before. And it's a very motivating thing to see progress constantly. When you leave it alone for a couple of weeks and realise that nothing's been done to it, that's when it starts to drag on you, I find. You just have to keep picking up that brush. Just for tiny little moments, even if you only have 10 spare minutes a day, just grab that brush, do a teensy little bit of colour on something, same thing the next day, and you'll find that the motivation will come so that when you do have more free time later, you'll be more likely to plough on with it because you can see that it's actually been progressing. And if you don't get time, and if you stick with just having to do little 5 and 10, 15-minute spells here and there, then it's still going to get done eventually. A lot of people who say they don't have enough free time to paint, often they can usually spare just that tiny little period each day. If you have the ability to get a painting area set up permanently and leave it there, that's a big advantage. Because if you only have a tiny amount of free time each day, you don't want to be spending that setting up all your paints. You just want to be painting. So it depends on your living situation, how much space you have, how many people you live with, and such. But if you can, that's how I do it anyway. Just get the brush out every day. And when I'm not getting the brush out every day, sometimes it takes a while to get back in the saddle again. The motivation disappears very rapidly. Just got to stick with it. MCO, any idea what happened to Avatar of the Father in herd list change in version 2 to version 3? Well, the herd list was just completely, some would say butchered, others would say streamlined, others would say brought into line with other things. It was an odd choice, though, that they've muddled with that one army in particular more so than others. There are other armies that they may not have that much of an intention of supporting that much either, that got more attention. There were some of them that even split into multiple armies, but the herd were kind of drastically changed and lost a lot of their signature units. So the herd players were not very pleased. Even to this day, most of them aren't pleased, from what I understand. Oh, just accidentally moved the camera setup there. There you go. Steve tries to paint every day as well. It must be sound advice. Spotted a bit of dust. Okay, do we have more black to apply in here? Not a lot, but maybe a few little bits. Also, if you're trying to get into the whole paint everyday thing, then having a wet palette is probably a very good idea. Because, especially if you've mixed a paint, you don't have to redo it each time, you just leave it wet on the palette and go back to it the next day without having to mess about mixing colours again. MCO agrees on painting every day too. Well, whatever you've painted for Kings of War, usually there's something you can use it for in the army list. Even if the thing that you were originally intending it to be has disappeared. There's probably something in there you could use it for. Like, for example, this Hellfane I'm painting right here. if I don't like the Hellfane in the army list, I don't like its rules particularly, then I could run it as a Greater Obsidian Golem, because it's on the same base size. Same kind of big crittery monster with lava running through its veins. I don't think people would really complain about that. Okay, now I need to work out if this is actually part of the Hellfane's head or part of its helmet here. I'm going to look on the Mantic website. Let's see. Okay, that's just part of its head. It is not armour. The Hellfane is one of the few models on the Mantic website, probably because it's one of the newer ones, where I look at it and think, I don't believe my paint job is going to look as good as that. Some of the older Mantic website, either the paint jobs themselves or just the photography on them, didn't seem to be up to scratch compared to the newer stuff. They've really upped their game recently. So yeah, I don't think I'll be able to paint one as good as that. But I'm just going to stick to my own style and see how it looks when it's finished. Hmm. Turning it to a variety of different angles now, just to make sure I've got absolutely every little bit that was unduly influenced by the gold. And there are a few little crevices that I couldn't see from that angle. Many of which you wouldn't be able to see at all during the game, but I would know they were there and it would drive me nuts. Okay, I think I'm fairly satisfied with that. When all that black is dry, then I'll go in and look much more closely off camera and go around with a fine-tooth comb over the whole thing and make sure that I've covered every single bit. So that's all we're going to do on the Hellfane for today, and already you can see it's looking like quite an impressive creature. I'm going to have to do some more gold on those leg armour plates there. I didn't really hit those very well with the airbrush. Graham's wondering if he can run an artillery pack of Morpup launchers. You can definitely run several Morpup launchers and I've seen some Goblin Army lists that look quite terrifying so far. I haven't personally used any of them because I've only got one and I don't have it painted yet. But people are using them. Goblin artillery is still very scary. And the Morpup launchers are even more versatile than other artillery, because on those turns where they just don't have a juicy target, you can still use them to reload the Morpup into one of your own units to be used in combat. Making them extra spicy. The models I've got that don't really have any place in this edition, this was actually my third giant that I was working on for my goblins. If you've seen my others, you'll know this kind of matches the rest of them in the Frost Giant family, but they're pretty tiny now compared to the new giants. These were actually on 60mm bases because the original one I made didn't fit on anything smaller than that. So I just had to put all my giants on 60mm just for consistency's sake. And I'm probably never going to finish this one now because there's nothing really to do with it. No small giants anymore. And the other two are kind of useless at the moment as well. So do I rebase them onto something else? Do I use them as something different on an incorrect base size? It's a tough one. I do like the giants. I used to run quite a few of them back in the day in my goblins. Okay, so how's this pink looking? Looking very pink, if you ask me. So the backs of the tentacles, I'm thinking about doing those in this colour. So it's distinct from his skin, and then I could also do the other tentacles on the body, like this one here, in there. I could do that in this colour as well. Let me know what you think, folks. Is this colour going to be a good one for the backs of the tentacles and all the non-suction tentacles? Thoughts? I await the audience input. I'm not going to be doing this episode for too much longer. It is getting late. But we are going to do a little bit more today. And I will be back tomorrow, obviously. Okay, let's try a tentacle in this colour. Let's just do it on one little one and see how it looks. I think it's going to be... let's see. I've already taken some of this out. Yeah, I've actually already got some of this on the wet palette. So let's have a go. Is it a darker pink? Well, it's kind of. It's pinkish. Just finding the right brush here. Let's go. Nope, that one's too fat. We don't want one that big. Let's have this one. So you'll be able to see when I've applied it to one tentacle and then tell me if it's alright. Let's go for this one here. It does definitely have a dark pink to it. Like a lipstick kind of colour. So there's the colour of it next to the flesh. I mean, the camera there is actually pretty handy. It allows me to paint around corners because I can just look what I'm doing on the screen. I think that looks alright though. Why don't you just use the small giant test as a unit filler for a horde of goblins? That's definitely a possibility. Or repurposing all my giants and just putting them all onto a base together as a horde of trolls would also be an option. Okay, let's do some more tentacles then. All these colours are going to be somewhat tied together because the wash or shade, whatever I decide to use, whether it's an actual shade, the Druchii Violet, or whether I use a contrast paint for the same job, the same one is going to be applied to all these areas, so it will tie them together a bit. And then we're going to build that up at the points where the two colours meet. So there'll be kind of a fade, hopefully. That's what I'm going for. We'll see whether it actually works. Okay, we've got another tentacle here. I'm not going to paint the little arms and faces in any different purple or pink colour. But I am going to be painting the eyeballs and the teeth, and possibly their mouths are going to have green ooze coming out of them. Steve would rebase them and carry on using them as giants on 75mm. I'm not sure though, because they are quite short statured. I don't know if that would look good. I may have to give it a try. We shall see. Okay, let's start with this one here. Oh, also there's a tentacle growing out of this dragon's horn as well. So I'm going to pick that one out. Oh, and there's also the big one on the back of the leg. Totally forgot about that one. I haven't decided what colour to do this dragon's head. Should the dragon's head be painted the same colour as the rest of the flesh, or should it be like it's kind of morphing into a dragon? And should I maybe do it green and just paint it as a dragon's head, but with the bits sticking out in purple? I'd be interested to hear people's thoughts on that. The original plan was that it would look like just a dragon's head, but I'm concerned that that might just look too stuck on and not tied in enough with the model. So I'd like some input on that from the people. The reason I'm not painting the faces in a different colour is because I want them to blend in very much with the flesh. And you want them to stand out because they're going to be dry brushed, so you'll be able to see the shape of the faces. But they're not supposed to look like they're just stuck on faces, they're supposed to look like they're growing as part of this mound that's one continuous piece. Very conscious of making sure the faces don't just look weird and stuck on. Trying to tie them in as much as possible, and obviously they are the part that's the most just stuck on. So in order to minimise that, I feel like I shouldn't paint them in a different colour. Very difficult to hold this thing upside down. Get to the last bit of tentacle down here. Steve says, I tried to just keep it all blended together, so do that with the dragon's head as well. I could just paint it, it would be a little bit different to the rest of it, but I could paint it as just a purple dragon's head, rather than a purple hideous growth in the shape of a dragon's head, if you see the difference. Just paint it as if I was painting a dragon's head. So it's the same colour, so it would tie in with the scheme, but it would look like his hand has actually turned into a dragon. It's weird and difficult to explain, but hopefully you get the idea. Getting some more of this paint out. Got some more tentacles to do. So these specific tentacles that are coming out of his head are from some kind of tentacle monster from Hellboy. It's also a Mantic product. It was at, I think it was at a Dreadball event at Mantic HQ. There was just random bags of them for sale. I assume it was a Dreadball event because that's the last time I was at Mantic HQ. They also tend to have good deals like that at the open days. Bargain bins and such. Yeah, and try and blend the arm it's attached to so it looks like it's actually growing a dragon head. Very cool. Yeah, that is the idea. We'll see whether it succeeds, though. I haven't painted anything so weird and wacky since I started improving my painting. All the truly weird things I've worked on before were back when I was just a base coat and wash kind of guy. I'm working on bits that you can't really see at the moment, but I'm sure you don't mind. I highly doubt people are just glued to the screen with their eyeballs anyway. I did have some ideas for the Night Stalker bases. I've started to think about that a bit more seriously now since some of the models are practically finished. I will want to base them, but I haven't nailed down anything yet. Just more ideas floating around right now. Okay, this is a very, very difficult bit to reach. Right, under the arm. I've strayed a bit onto the other pink, but I can fix that later. Never perfect the first time, especially on such a big, cumbersome thing like this that's really, really difficult to get the brush into. Hopefully the ends justify the means, and it looks very cool when it's all finished. That's the dream, obviously. We all just want to make cool armies. With this army, I haven't really decided as such, but I think the way it's going to go is that the paint jobs, I'm not going to put in as much time as I have with the Abyssal Dwarves, because it would take a very long time, and these are going to be more complicated conversions. So some of the cool effects on these are going to be more from the parts that I've used on the models, rather than the excess of highlights or whatever it is that makes the Abyssal Dwarves work. That's not to say I'm just going to slap contrast paints on them and be done with it, though. So obviously there is a lot of work going on here. But I'm not going to aspire for painting perfection when they are such hideous creatures, and the main selling point is the hideous conversion work rather than the painting. We'll see though, I might just give in to temptation and just spend an age painting each one. That's not the original plan though. We're almost done with the other side of these tentacles now. Almost. Not too much more at all. Also, one thing while I'm here, I have to decide which colour to do for the little heads that are poking out. Not the faces, but the actual heads. For example, on his shoulder, right there, there's a little head poking out. Can you see that? And there's another one on his big toe here. Right down there. So, do I paint these in this kind of purple as well? This pink, should I say? Those are bits I don't mind standing out because they are little Night Stalkery heads poking out that are supposed to look like weird growths. I don't necessarily need to blend them in so much because they already tie in nicely because they are actual Night Stalker parts. And they do protrude from the skin. They're supposed to look like that. whereas the faces are supposed to just look like part of the flesh that's just growing into the shape of a face, rather than an actual creature sticking out of it. So, for example, this creature under his armpit here, I would possibly do that a different colour, because that's just supposed to be an actual growth out of the flesh, rather than a face embedded in the flesh, like on the kneecap there. Subtle difference. Steve is also a big fan of Mantic bargain bins, apparently. I'm a very big fan. Okay, almost to the stage where I'm just going to leave it like this for now, obviously. Plenty more to be done. Okay, there's how his tentacles are looking right now. I think that is a solid start to this model. Obviously got some bits to fix up and some more bits to cover, but it's a start and I like the way it's shaping up. So let's stick him to one side. And the last thing we're going to do today involves dry brushing. But I think this video lived up to the title anyway. We've worked on some quite hefty, large and hideous beasts here. Just soaping the brush off here. And let's get that put away and dry brush. So tilt the camera down a little bit. And here he is. So we're going to get some white. I think there's already a couple of blobs of white on this palette. There's one. And then we're going to give this guy a light dry brush of white. I'll see if I can get away with not fixing his hair as well where the purple strayed onto it. We'll see though. So I'm going to dry brush the hair. Actually, let's dry brush the hair first, because that's going to be a heavier dry brush while there's more paint on the brush. And that also, of course, includes the beard. And now for the rest of it. Not a heavy dry brush at all, just picking out corners and the bumps and the lumps. Nowhere near as heavy as we went in with the pink though. And I've actually forgotten to do one of the colours here, but it doesn't matter because I can go back and do that later. I haven't picked out the veiny bits of stringy bit wrapped around his legs yet, but that is not a problem. Okay, feeling quite satisfied here. Let's compare them. There you go. Don't they look charming together? So obviously this guy still needs more work. I think the hair is looking much whiter on this guy. So this guy is going to get more of a white dry brush, I think. I think it looks better with that. So do we have any white left on the palette? Let's see. Let me scavenge a bit more there. See if I can do this now. Don't think there was enough white there. So I'm sure we'll go back to that. Get this brush soaped off, and then I think we'll wrap this one up for the evening. Going nearly, let's see, 1 hour 40 minutes ish. So just soaping down this dry brush. And don't forget, there's going to be another one of these videos every day for the foreseeable future. Helps me stay painty. It helps everyone else stay painty, hopefully. Keeps up that hobby motivation. And on Tuesday, of course, in fact, before I go, still got this guy as well that I've been working on, don't forget. And I don't know if you've seen the extra orange I've applied to him since then. I've gone in and turned all the little red parts into a little mountain range there. And the next stage on this is going to be adding white specks and little stars onto the black parts. My grot mega tank. So we haven't done anything on him today because there's other things that are priorities. So, Andy and Rem show on Tuesday. Hobby lockdown painty time every day for the foreseeable future. And more PC game streaming as well. I may ask Mr. Remington Steele if he wants to do any more Vermintide tomorrow evening. That's a possibility. So keep your eyes peeled for that in case that's a thing that happens. And don't forget to check out all the links in the video description. Don't forget to like the video, check out the Facebook group and all that good stuff. There's Twitter down there as well. Also the various fundraising links to send me all your life savings on a one-off or monthly basis in exchange for producing all this red hot, sizzling, moist, succulent, tender, delicious, dishlicious, tasty, ice cool, while also remaining sizzling content. Surely you can't put a price on that. But if you could, it would be a small amount via Patreon, I'm sure. And with that, I think we can wrap this one up. So who wants to say goodbye for this episode? How about this guy? Good night out there. Whatever you are.